Have you ever thought about how a country, like a real, unified country, is actually made? Especially when you're starting with hundreds of separate little pieces? Well, today we're diving into the story of the man who literally put the puzzle of modern India together. We're talking about the incredible Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, an absolute titan of history.
Okay, so first things first. You just can't talk about Sardar Patel without mentioning his famous title, the Iron Man of India. And let me tell you, that wasn't just some cool nickname they came up with. No, this was a reputation he earned, forged in the fire of India's incredibly chaotic birth.
So let's get a little background. Who was this guy really? Well, born back in 1875, Vallabhbhai Patel found himself in, arguably, the most critical roles right when India gained its independence. We're talking about being the very first deputy prime minister and home minister. I mean, can you imagine? The entire massive job of building a new nation from the ground up, it landed right in his lap.
And the scale of that task, wow, it's kind of hard to even wrap our heads around it today. The biggest challenge, the one that could have broken the entire country before it even started, was just how fragmented everything was.
Just look at this number, 565. That's not a typo. That's how many princely states there were scattered across India when the British left. And these weren't just like, counties or provinces. No. Each one had its own ruler, its own little kingdom, and a huge choice to make. Join India, stay independent, or maybe even join Pakistan. The potential for chaos was off the charts.
So this set up a massive existential question, right? Was India going to be one single strong country, or was it going to shatter into 565 little pieces, all competing with each other? I mean, everything, literally everything, was on the line.
And right into the middle of all this chaos steps Sardar Patel. He's the guy who takes on this impossible job. He becomes the architect of unity, the man who had to figure out how to weave all these different threads into one single flag.
So you're probably asking, how on earth did he do it? Well, his strategy was brilliant. A total masterclass, really. It was a two-pronged attack. First up, diplomacy. He'd talk, he'd reason, he'd persuade, appeal to their sense of a greater India. But, and this is a big but, if that didn't work, out came pillar number 2, firmness. And by firmness, we mean decisive, no-nonsense action.
And if you want a perfect example of that firmness, look no further than Operation Polo. You see, the ruler of Hyderabad, a huge, powerful state right in the middle of India, said, no thanks. He refused to join. Did Patel hesitate? Not for a second. In 1948, he authorized military action. The state was integrated quick and clean, preventing what could have been a major security nightmare for the new country.
But here's the thing. Just stitching the map together, that was only half the job. Patel's vision was way bigger than that. He knew a country isn't just about territory. To really last, it needs a rock-solid foundation.
So his focus shifted to building the actual machinery of a modern state, the nuts and bolts. He understood that for India to actually work, for it to be stable for generations, it needed a strong system of governance.
And you can still see the results of that thinking today, which is pretty incredible. He was the driving force behind India's civil services, the IAS and the IPS. He famously called them the steel frame of the country, the structure holding everything up. Oh, and he also oversaw the very first national census in 1951.
Now, this census wasn't just a head count. This is where you see his genius again. He did something that was way ahead of its time. He directly linked that census data to plans for national development. Think about that. It's basically an early version of data-driven policy, making sure you're building the country based on real information, not just hopes and guesses.
So we've talked about the Iron Man, but the name you hear most often is Sardar. And the story behind that name is, well, it's a lot more personal, and it tells you everything you need to know about the man.
See, years before he was a minister, Patel was leading this huge protest for farmers' rights, the Bardoli Satyagraha. And he was so good at it, so completely dedicated, that the women of the village just started calling him Sardar, which means chief or leader. It wasn't a title given by a government, it came straight from the people, and it stuck, for good.
So when you put it all together, you see these two incredible sides of his legacy. You've got Patel the unifier, the guy who did the impossible and brought 565 princely states into one nation. And then you've got Patel the administrator, the practical genius who built the systems, the steel frame that keeps that nation running.
And really, here's the bottom line. The most important thing to remember. Sardar Patel's legacy, it isn't just something you read about in a textbook. You can literally see it.
Just look at a map of India, that single unified country staring back at you. That is, in so many ways, a direct result of his work, his vision, and his sheer force of will.
Which really just leaves us with one final, pretty mind-blowing question to think about. What if he hadn't been there? Without his diplomacy, without his firmness, what would a map of that part of the world even look like today? It's a question that really drives home just how huge his impact was. A true nation builder.